First, we're going to look at the skill of finding percentages without a calculator. I'm first going to remind you how to divide a number by 10. We do this by moving the decimal point. If my sum was 36.2 divided by 10, I would move the decimal point one space to the left to make that number smaller. My answer would be 3.62. If my number ends in 0, it might look like I'm just taking the 0 off if I divide by 10, but actually what I'm doing is inserting a decimal point at the end of the number, which is where it would go if it were written in, and then moving the decimal point one place to the left as I did above. So if I took 270 and divided it by 10, my answer would be 27, and it looks like I've taken the 0 off. So if I had the number 421, which I wanted to divide by 10, I'd do the same as I did in the example above. I'd first of all insert the decimal point at the end of the number where it should go if it doesn't appear in there already, and I will then move the decimal point one space to the left and insert it there. So 421 divided by 10 gives me 42.1 as an answer. If I'm dividing by 100, I'm going to use a similar idea of moving the decimal point. However, unlike 10 that has just one 0, 100 has two zeros, so I'm going to move my decimal point 2 places. So in the example I have here, which is 73 divided by 100, I'm going to insert my decimal point. I'm going to move it 2 places to the left, 1, 2. So my decimal point must appear before the 7. So when I am writing my answer, I'll put a 0 before the decimal point, add in the 7 and the 3, so my answer is 0.73. To find 10% of any amount, I need to divide that amount by 10. That will give me 10%. So if I wanted to find 10% of 34, the calculation I would do would be 34 divided by 10. And as we know, that means to do that calculation, I will insert my decimal point at the end of the number and move it one place to the left. So 34 divided by 10 gives me an answer of 3.4. Therefore, 10% of 34 is 3.4. My next example says, if 10% of 18 is 1.8, what is 5% of 18? And to work this out, we are going to use the 10% figure. But what we need to bear in mind here is the relationship between 10% and 5%. It's half. So if 10% of an amount is 1.8, 5% of the same amount is going to be half. And half of 1.8 is 0.9. This method of finding 10% of an amount is used in a non-calculator scenario, and therefore if we want to find half of a number and we're not sure how to do it, we have to think about dividing that number by 2. And if all else fails, we will do that in a bus shelter division like this. So how many 2's are there in 1.8? There are no 2's in the number 1, so I carry the 1. There are 9 2's in 18, and to finish off the sum, I make sure the decimal point goes in the same place in my answer. So to recap, if 10% of 420 is 42, and I want to know what 5% of 420 is, I know that 10% is 42, 5% is going to be a half, and half of 42 is 21. So 5% of 420 is 21. My question now says, if 10% of 420 is 42, what is 30%? So again, I go back to my 10%, being 42, and I think about the relationship between the 10% and the 30%, and that is a multiplier of 3. So what I need to do now is multiply the other side by 3, and 42 times 3 is 126. Bearing in mind this is a non-calculator skill, so if we're not sure, a column multiplication is the best way to deal with this. However you do your multiplication, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 4 is 12, so my answer is 126. I can use the method of finding 10% to find any amount of a percentage by using a multiplier. If I want 20%, I find 10% and multiply it by 2. If I have 10% and want 40%, my multiplier would be 4. If I had 10% and wanted 70%, my multiplier would be 7. So I can scale up from 10% to any amount of percentage. If I wanted to find 45% of an amount, again I can start with my base percentage of 10%. And I've got to think about how I can increase that percentage to make up 45%. Well, the first thing I can do is make 40% by using a multiplier of 4. If I go back to my original 10% to find 5%, I'm going to halve it. Now I have 40% and 5%, and if I add those two together, that will give me my required 45%. So I'm now going to work through how I might find 45% of 220. I first of all establish what 10% is. 220 divided by 10. Put my decimal point in and move it one space to the left. 10% is 22. 40% is a multiplier of 4. I multiply my amount by 4 and I get 88. The last thing I want to do is move from my 10% to 5%, which I know is a half. I go back to my original 22, and I halve it. Five percent is 11. I have 40% being 88 and 5% being 11. Therefore 45% is going to be 88 plus 11. 45% of 220 is 99. To increase an amount, we're going to make it bigger. That is an addition function. So increasing £86 by 10%, we first find 10% and then we add it to our original amount. So 10% of 86 is 8.6. Increasing it means we're going to add. So we have 86 and we're going to add 8.6, being very careful to ensure that our numbers are lined up in the correct columns. Putting our decimal point in our answer, 86 plus 8.6 is 94.6. Remembering that we're using money here, so our answer we put in a money format, £94 and 60 pence. Decreasing is to make something smaller. Therefore, it's a subtraction, takeaway function. Once we have found 10%, we need to take it away from the original amount. So if we want to decrease £86 by 10%, we start off by taking 10% away from the £86. Now, in terms of creating a column subtraction, it's probably best to make 86 a decimal by adding zeros. We then can see quite clearly that when we come to take 6 away from nothing, it's a function we can't do, so we have to borrow. 10 take away 6 is 4. 5 take away 8, a function that we can't do, so we borrow again. 15 take away 8 leaves us with 7, and 7 here we have nothing underneath to take from it, so that leaves 7 as well. Put the decimal point in our answer. And once again we need to turn the answer of this sum into a money value, which is £77 and 40 pence. Decreasing £86 by 10% leaves us with £77 and 40 pence.